band, and it's just a natural talent, right? That ability, it's these people who get a lot of money to go be public speakers, right? And it's just like, man, how, like, that's just crazy. And it's so funny. It's rarely the content, it's the delivery.
You're listening to the AV-IT Amplifier. Each week, we'll feature voices and ideas that need to be amplified in the higher education and pro AV IT communities. This show is brought to you by higheredav.com. And now here's your host, Ryan Gray.
Well, hello, everybody, and thank you for pressing the button that says the AV-IT Amplifier podcast. If it is Wednesday, we are back with a new episode, and this Wednesday is no exception. I am your host, Ryan Gray, as always, and we are back for our traditional week 2 with Issac Abbs. Sir, thank you for being with us again. Would you remind everybody who you are and what you do?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Issac Abbs. I am the Chief Information Officer at Pima Community College in Tucson, Arizona.
And I would advise, if you're punching in here and you haven't listened to last week's episode, go give it a look. You'll get a little bit of a look into the brain of what it might be like to be a CIO on a regular basis. And you might have a feeling of whether that's something you want to do or not do in the future. But really appreciate everything that Issac shared with us. Appreciate you coming back for week 2. So before we jump into some of my standard questions, one of the things that is fantastic is you are a Tucson person. Right? You are a U of A grad, you're there, and Tucson, Arizona is where I grew up. So, and I'm sure I've asked you this question, I do not remember, which is, where did you go to high school?
So I grew up in California. So
okay.
I went to Seaside High School in Seaside, California in the Monterey Peninsula. So that's where I grew up. Originally went off to school in Maine, of all places. I started my college career at Bates College in Lewiston, Maine, was there for a year and a half. I had my first experience of snow on a whole other level. That was a little too much for me. Transferred midway in my sophomore year to the University of Arizona, where I graduated from.
Okay, so then I got to ask, how does that happen? How do you go from Maine to Tucson?
So, yeah, good question. Pretty straightforward answer. Growing up, I had a friend whose grandparents lived where I did, but him and his brother happened to live in the Phoenix area. So in my junior year, I think it was Easter weekend, I flew to Phoenix, Arizona and hung out with them for an extended weekend, and honestly knew Arizona was a place I'm going to go with wanted to live, if for sure, like would not mind living. And so when I was looking to leave freezing cold Maine, the U of A was one of the institutions I applied to. I came to Tucson sight unseen. That same buddy, I flew to Phoenix. He picked me up, drove me down to Tucson. I, did my orientation, moved into the dorm, and the rest is history.
Been there ever since.
I've been here ever since. Right. Yeah, my wife is born and raised here, has zero desire to leave. So, the longer you stay, the deeper the roots.
All right. Well, I'll put that out there for people. If most people who've been to Arizona, they know Phoenix, they know Scottsdale, they've been in that area. Man, there's a lot of great Arizona that's not in the Valley area, and you've got to visit. Tucson is an awesome place. I love it.
Really cool place.
Yeah. I will put that out there. Okay. And then you mentioned you lived at which dorm did you live in at the U of A?
I can tell you where it is. It was on Park, close to Park and Speedway.
Over on that side, one of the big ones over there, maybe.
It wasn't the big ones, no. So it wasn't. It wasn't down by Fifth. So it was. I mean, it was a decent sized dorm, but it wasn't the big crazy ones. No, it was a smaller one. Yeah.
Well, there's no better content.
Yeah.
Yeah, no better content for everybody out there than two guys talking about the location of dorms on one particular campus. Right. You know what I'm saying? But that's a fun thing to do. So the other thing that sometimes, forgive me, I can't let it go. And there's things with people's names, right? My name is a color, yada, yada, yada. And you're Issac Abbs. Yep. Have you put up with your whole life people asking about those abs? Have you had to keep them up, like a lot of sit-ups to keep up with people's expectations?
Whole life, but yes, there are people that definitely remind me of that. I got a colleague here, and he always calls me, there's six-pack abs. I don't know about that, but it's funny because when I first came to the college, my name's Issac. My parents were fans of the Love Boat, so that's where Issac comes from. So they didn't have my name wasn't on the door. And so telling my colleagues that there was on my door was a printed out picture of, bartender Isaac from the Love Boat and a picture of, Abbs. And so, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, but yeah, not as much as you would think. It's funny. It's my daughter, my older daughter, who will be 9 later this month, who probably deals with it more. And it comes home and is all, people are laughing at my name. And I'm like, it could be way worse. Like, but, yeah.
It could be, but yeah. I feel like these days just Photoshop, you can put abs on. You can get abs going on anybody.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right. So you touched a little in the first episode and about us talking about, introversion and extroversion. And you talked, you mentioned really kind of the moving into these leadership positions coming from technical backgrounds. There are a fair number of people that are introverted but to go into some of these roles, the expectation of being up, being on, and being with people constantly are there. How have you and what advice would you have for others kind of trying to work through that transition of not transition, but dealing with the demand of extroverted activity for a natural introvert looking to be a technology leader?
Yeah. You have to be willing to be comfortable being uncomfortable. I mean, it's as simple as that, but it's as complex as that. You're willing to get out of your comfort zone and get it going, or you're not. The more you do it, the easier it gets, right? And it's true of anything. I mean, it's even like, not the best analogy, but employee discipline, right? It's not fun the first time you have to discipline somebody, but over time it becomes, I'll call it easier. Like it's part of the job. This is the same, right? The first time I had to get up in front of somebody and talk, it wasn't the most comfortable. It's still never the most comfortable, but I've done it, right? I've been on big stages at big events and still sweating like a pig, but the bottom line is you get to a point where it becomes much more natural. My boss said this to me. I remember I was doing a presentation. He's like, you do enough of these and you get to just start recycling presentations, right? The first one you got, it's the same way, right? Like the first, panel, the first whatnot, you probably over prepared, you think about it a lot, but as you do it more and more, it's like, you can just do them. But it's practice. It's practice and practice and practice.
Yeah. Yep. Ease into it. You
have to ease into it. Yeah.
You have to ease into it. Okay. What let's say, there's a version of the multiverse that you don't end up working in a technology field anywhere. What's a career that you think you would have been good at or would have liked to explore outside of technology?
That you got me there. I'll give you something that is a little, out there, but you'll see there's like leadership to it. So big soccer fan, grew up playing soccer all through high school, played, as an adult, tore an ACL right before my first daughter was born, ticked off my wife royally because according to her, I did not need to be playing that game right before we flew to California the next day. But anyhow, big soccer fan. Being a soccer coach for a Premier League club, I think would be awesome, right? You still have that same leadership aspect. You still have that competitive nature but that is something that would be awesome to do.
Yeah.
Maybe more so now that my wife's in coaching and I kind of see it through her. She's a softball coach, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's cool. So what of the kind of coaching mentality do you feel like then you can use and bring back in, in the field that you're in?
Yeah, it's that vision, right? You kind of start the season with, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go transform this. We're going to transform the world. We're going to win the cup. We're going to do these things. So much of that is about buy-in, right? Yes, skill matters. You need skilled people. But there's a lot of teams that win with lesser skill because they're all bought into the mission. They're bought into the vision. And so I think those are very analogous to what I do on a day-to-day basis versus what any professional, any team, right, hoping to win is about, right? And it's a team, right? It's about team, and it's about trust. We talked about on the other episode. Trust is key, right? Those are all paramount of extremely successful sports franchises. They have those things. For a sports franchise, like there's something.
comment about, like, here's the vision, there's a goal, we're going to get to this championship or that in your world, and you're trying to like you said, articulate a vision and get buy-in to it.
Yep.
How do you frame things as the accomplishment? What is the way to get people to see that common end goal to guide their day in and day out work and decisions?
Yeah, a lot of it is, a lot of what we do impacts the organization, not necessarily us directly, right? But of course, there's like I talked about in the previous episode, over the winter break, we moved our data center, right? There's celebration in that, there's victory in that. But why were we doing that, right? There was an opportunity here for us to cut costs. Cut costs why? One, because it's the right thing to do, but two, those are dollars that can be repurposed into the mission, right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes you're getting those types of wins. Then there's, you roll out a brand new advising system or a new student application system, and the business is ecstatic because they have struggled with things for so many years, and now it is the way they've always imagined it to be and more, right? It's a lot of victory through that. But a lot of it, right, when we do our strategic plan, it's like, here are the goals, here are the categories, this is what we're going to do. And, we celebrate. As a department, we celebrate. Twice a year, we have half-day events with the entire department. And what are those? Those are, we go over the strategic plan. We pat ourselves on the back. We celebrate the wins. We talk about the crazy that it took to get to the win, right? There's a lot of times that I'm always telling people, and I think this is even on our monthly staff meetings, it's like there's a method to our madness. There's purpose behind our madness, right? And there's a lot of times where I'll tell teams, we are going to go through the suck before we get to the other side, right? When you transform things, depending on what you're coming from and where you're going to, sometimes it is going to be more painful. But on the other side is where it now is easier and less hands-on than it was back here. But there is no smooth path. And I think that's why you have to celebrate the wins and the opportunities. I try to make it a point at every staff meeting when I get emails from people like, hey, I want to thank so-and-so, they did, to bring that up, right? Pat people on the back. Our frontline service desk staff, the men and women who take the phone calls and get yelled at and chewed out, those are the people that I call out individually for those who have 85% or higher on their customer satisfaction score, because it matters, right? That's what we are trying to do. We are providing a service. So
nice. I love it. And taking that time, like you said, to celebrate doing, then once you're on the other side, before we look to the next thing we're going to do, we're going to look back and go, remember what it was like before and remember what it was like now. That exercise of transport yourself backwards 1 year and remember what things were like. And all of a sudden you go, wow, we've gotten a lot done, even if it doesn't feel like it to do that. I love that. That's awesome. Okay. What's the most used app on your phone?
Gmail. Without a doubt. Gmail. I'll give you the three. I use three. Gmail, Chrome, and LinkedIn. Those are my three power apps.
All right. And so no fun, no advice for anybody. You don't have
not
any
not on my phone.
Okay.
I have a few games on my iPad. These days that's been, consumed and confiscated by my daughter, but well,
that's
pretty
cool.
boring. It's funny because in the role of a CIO, I am not this tech heavy person, right? I'm not the gadget guy. I'm not the iWatch guy. That talked about on the previous call, like, how do I get away from it? That might be how I get away from it all, and that I don't subscribe to much of it personally.
What is something that you've recently changed your mind about?
Man, that's a good question. I don't know. I'd have probably more in my personal life with my kids that but in terms of something that I can at least think of off the top of my head, and it wasn't really recent. It probably was 2 years ago. But when AI first came out, it was kind of like, been here, done that, seen this kind of technology bubble. I was very purposeful about not driving the institution all in on it, right? Like, let's wait a little bit. And I think there were reasons. One, it's like, well, let's kind of make sure this lasts. Two, just like it's not a cheap technology, right? It's a lot of investment, and the worst thing you could do is go spend millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and fall flat. And so I definitely believe in the value of AI. I think there's a lot of opportunity to be gained in AI. I don't fear AI. I think just like any tool, it's going to be used for good and it's going to be used for bad. But that's true of any technology. I think AI maybe just has shed more spotlight on it because it's a technology tool that everybody's enamored with. And so I've changed my tune of like, well, let's be cautious to like definitely more. Now let's get the ball rolling, right? We've rolled out tools to staff and students and faculty. We're looking to engage with partnerships with vendors on opportunities. It's more of, okay, now let's go. Let's go and make smart strategic partnerships and move this institution forward.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's one that we've all had to grapple with. And
Yeah.
there's still people in every institution at all levels of trying to kind of make up their mind, change their mind, or,
I was on a customer advisory board yesterday with peers across the country, and it blew my mind how many people are still on the very fearful, and it's like, I understand that was the case, and some of the fears I think are still valid, but at some point you're starting to fall behind, like a lot.
Yeah, we did. We had a faculty staff survey about AI usage and stuff went out, and on the survey, we purposely did not have, so one of the questions, and I don't remember exactly, but it was about like, how do you see yourself use it? After it's, what are you using? How do you see yourself? And, but there was not it was like, I'm going to learn about it. I'm going to this, I'm going to that. And we got a couple of people back with comments of like, I'm not going to use it. I never plan to use it. I am not going to. And we didn't make that an option on the survey purposely. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely.
Where you go,
absolutely. Yeah.
People, it's still stuck out there in a place of going, okay, but I don't know how you're going to be able to stay away from it at this point. Like, I just don't know that that's an option anymore.
I mean, I think some of it is you don't realize how much of it you're using and been using for years that you're not even aware of, right?
Fair point.
Yeah.
All right. Switch gears. What is the best sandwich?
Best sandwich is, and so you'll know this one growing up in Tucson. It is at Bison Witches, and it is in my opinion, it's the club, but it's instead of mayo, it's their house honey mustard.
Nice. I love it.
My jam. Yeah.
I am pretty sure we've chatted. I've talked with somebody about Bison Witches on this show before. So
Really?
Yes,
Okay. Yeah.
100%. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I don't go there nearly enough, but that is the sandwich. Yeah.
Okay, so describe the institution of Bison Witches for people who don't know what.
Dive bar. So it's total dive bar, but it's. I mean, you sit in the booth and your butt's on the ground because the booth has no cushion, right? I mean, very dive bar-y. But they're sandwiches, and then they have bread bowls. So I'll get that sandwich with clam chowder bread bowl and chips. Unreal, and they're like pressed or they're toasted or something. They're warm sandwiches. But it's a funky mainstay in Tucson. It's on 4th Avenue, which is kind of that, funky local,
right outside the university gate,
down the street from the university. Yeah, it's all local business, not very commercialized. It's just It's.
I haven't been there.
I'll date myself a little bit. My first semester here at the University of Arizona, and that was midway through my sophomore year, was 2001 when U of A made it to the final championship game. We lost. And I remember that was my first experience with 4th Avenue. It was actually the game before we beat Michigan State in the Final Four, hopping in the back of someone's truck, driving down to 4th Avenue, and everybody out there, right? I mean, that's,
That's big time Tucson history. The only team to ever beat 3 number 1 seeds on the way to the championship, because it's not possible to beat 4. You can only beat
3. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. I bet Bison. I haven't been there in a long time, but I bet it looks exactly the same now as the last time I was there.
Exactly the same. I think the only thing they did is on the outside part, they created a bar in the outside part. But that's probably been like 15 years ago. But outside of that, exactly the same. Yep.
Nice. Well, everybody listening, Tucson, 100%. Bison Witches on 4th Avenue.
Yeah.
That is 100% where everybody needs to be. Yeah. Okay. I got 2 more, and then we'll get into the closing thing.
Okay.
But I like to ask this question of people, which is, if there was a talent that other people have, one of those things that we think of as like raw talent, not something that's hard to acquire through things. What's a natural talent you'd love to have that, that you weren't blessed with?
Yeah, I am impressed with people who have this ability to just get on stage and just like grab an audience in the palm of their hand, and it's just a natural talent, right? That ability, it's these people who get a lot of money to go be public speakers, right? And it's just like, man, how, like, that's just crazy. And it's so funny. It's rarely the content, it's the delivery, right? Just that ability. Yeah.
To just do, and and obviously we're trotting back on, having to develop into it. I would ask two things, which is, do you feel like there are maybe people you look at and go, wow, they really have that natural ability, but maybe the truth is they've had to hone it over time.
Sure.
And do you try and steal? What do you look at and borrow from them to try and bring that in yourself?
I'm not a massive student of the game, but there's a few people who I follow and kind of try to pick up pointers. And, I'm a big Simon Sinek fan. And, one of the last things, and this was months ago I saw it, but it was something about, start things off by telling a story. Don't start with an agenda. Don't say this is what we're going to cover. Start with, like, hook people with a story, like give them the story and then get into it. And I was like, that's genius. And so, like, the next time I did a talk, like, that's exactly what I tried to do. And of course it probably wasn't as good as it could be, but the idea was like, yeah, that's exactly it. Right. And I think about, like, how many times am I sitting in a room bored out of my mind. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's like, versus the, like, man, why did that one stick? And, that art of storytelling, that's probably the skill more so than it's that art of storytelling.
Right? I love that. You're totally right. That there is, I believe you're right. People, and probably there are people whose families or parents, grandparents were storytellers that have been passed down, where they know how to read an audience and grab people in and talk about things in that way. But yeah, I totally agree, because I love to try and tell a story, do something like that. And I think I'm always just too quick to get to the little part that I think is the best part. And then you miss the setup, and then it doesn't work, because I'm not patient enough to let it develop the way it's supposed to develop.
And I think that's a big part of the art, right? Is if you're nervous and you get on stage, you always are going to be too fast. And it's that ability to just, like, come off cool, collected, and tell the story. And I think sometimes it's just that. Like I said, it's rarely the content, it's the delivery. The delivery is the skill. Right?
Yeah. Well, I think there's a good tie in there too about, the role of a CIO and getting people on board, telling your story, getting the whys behind people 100%. For that, who may be academic leaders, people who come from whole different walks of life, and you got to be able to translate those things across. I love it. So what you're saying is maybe we need to start a CIO improv group where CIOs get together and what is it, the CIO Moth podcast, where everybody practices telling stories to each other.
Yeah. How do I know I'm an introvert? Because there's absolutely no way I would do that. That sounds awful. I completely get the rationale, but no way in the world. All right. No. Yeah. Makes me nervous thinking about it. Like, nope.
All right. Yeah. Well, if that's the case, then I really do thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate this. Okay. Same last three questions for everybody. Okay. So third to last question is, what is a question you wish people would ask you, but nobody ever does?
How are you doing?
What do you mean by that?
Right. I think in the role, especially in this role, everybody reaches out when they have a problem. Yeah. Nobody ever reaches out, hey, how are you doing? How's it going? Hey, I see things have been busy. How are you? Like, that is the question I wish people ask more.
So I think that is absolutely the number one common answer to that question.
Oh, really?
Show, right?
Interesting.
Oh yeah, 100%, which is, how are you doing? But actually mean it.
Oh, well, of course, mean it.
How you doing? Yeah. And the expectation is we don't, but people don't actually check in. Yeah. What you're articulating is a little bit too of like, well, he's the CIO, he's the whatever, that we don't need to worry about how that individual is doing.
Yeah.
They're the leader. They're getting paid enough to deal with whatever their
Still
problems
a person at
are.
the end of the day, right? Still a person.
Yeah. Yeah. So so my follow-ups on all that are, have you had people that have been able to do that? Are there people in your career that you think back on as the kind of people that definitely checked in on you, and or how do you try and emulate that, checking in on people and really asking that question, for other people?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have had some, a few. It's a small list of mentors in my life who have, checked in there. I think my first mentor, I'm still in contact with her to this day, and she'll check in from time to time, and I've helped her out do some things. She's helped me out help me do some things. It's something I try to be mindful of. Am I the best at checking in like one-on-one? No. I'll tell you one thing I do make a conscious effort to do, because I think it matters, and it's not a direct check-in, but I write every single person handwritten birthday card in the department every single year.
Yeah.
And we have over 100 people, so I'm doing them a lot, right? I mean, it's, I think, on my calendar. And I don't just say happy birthday, right? It's happy birthday. I make a point to thank them for something, for being a member of the department. And then I try to hone in on something specific that they did for the department. So that means I need to know enough about a lot of people to be able to write something that is more than happy birthday, here's my name, right?
Be genuine, authentic.
Genuine.
You can't
absolutely.
Fake it. Yeah.
And that's, because at the end of the day, they're people, right? And they have, they have lives outside of here, and I want to, recognize the good work they do while they're here, but recognize that they're human. They're not a part of the machine. They're a part of this team and part of the process.
Nice. And I think, tell me if you agree, you mentioned before, a time we were talking at a bar in Phoenix, and that was at a conference, an event, and that sort of thing. And I think, because I'm also, when things are busy, we're on campus, like there's stuff going on, I'm not great at that, right?
Yep.
It's what's the next thing that's happening.
Yeah.
It's sometimes making those spaces away from that, where, I'm saying, you're sitting with somebody in the evening, and then you can say, wait a second, no, how is it really going? And there's space to have that conversation rather than jumping on a Zoom and being like, how's everybody doing? Great. All right, well, here's the agenda. And nobody's got time for it. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. That's my pitch for everybody, to go to everything that you can go to, because sometimes that's where those conversations take place.
100%.
Cool. All right. Second to last question is, if people wanted to find you, follow you, or learn more about what you are up to at Pima Community College, how would they do so?
Yeah, on LinkedIn, Issac Abbs, LinkedIn. Yep.
Perfect. All right. I will link that for everybody, and please give Issac a follow. And finally, the last question is this. So the sort of the first old generation of TV newscasters, many of them had a sign-off phrase, right? The famous one, good night and good luck, Edward R. Murrow, these people that close their broadcast with their thing. So what is Issac Abbs' drop the mic sign-off phrase?
See you on the flip side.
Thank you for listening to the AV-IT Amplifier. Join us again for next week's episode, when we'll welcome a new guest who you'll want to hear from. We promise. Your host has been Ryan Gray. He's on the tweeters at Ryan_A_Gray, or find him on LinkedIn to connect. Please subscribe and give the show a rating and review wherever you get your podcasts. This show is brought to you by HigherEdAV.com. The views expressed here are not necessarily those of our respective institutions, employers, or sponsors. Everyone hang in there, go easy, and we'll be back next week.